Adam's debut novel, Golden Child, was listed as one of the BBC's 100 novels that shaped our world and awarded the Desmond Elliott Prize, the Authors Club's Best First Novel Award, and the McKittrick Prize in 2020. In this, her second novel, we see a return to the subtlety and warmth of her writing and its transporting effect on its readers. I thought I'd turn to another critically acclaimed award-winning writer, that of Monique Roffey, for her glorious exhortation for us all to read and share this incredibly tender and moving novel. An exquisitely written and uniquely Caribbean novel about the hard edges of social pressure and the soft longing of mother love. I was swept away from page one to the kicker ending, a compelling and tender story of what and who is hidden in almost every family. Read this book and give it to your friends.
Oh, that's a really nice introduction. Read this book and give it to your friends. I like that. Thank you. Okay, so I'll sort of start by just talking a little bit about me, so you know who I am. And I'll talk a little bit about my previous book, which was Golden Child. And I'm sort of talking about the origin story of Golden Child, and then about this new book, which is Love Forms. And then finally, if you're still with me, then I'll read it just a little bit from this new book, Love Forms. So yes, so I'm from Trinidad. So I was born in Trinidad and I lived there until I was 18. And I've been living in London. I've been living in London since around 2000, so nearly 25 years. So you can kind of do some maths and work out some ages. So the first book, Golden Child, it was set in Trinidad. And it's about a man with two sons, they're twins. The father is not an educated man. He's from quite humble circumstances. But he is trying to be a good father, and he's doing his best for these children. But the society that he lives in is quite a precarious one, and various things happen, and he soon sort of finds himself out of his depth. And so with that novel, what I always knew, I could always see the father really clearly, and I could always see the end. And so the work that I did there was really trying to take the reader on a journey to that ending that I could see so clearly in my mind. So when I came to the next novel, I sort of thought, okay, all right, surely I'll have learned something from this previous novel. But in fact, now I understand that each novel sort of presents its own challenges. And so with the new novel, I knew very little. All I had actually was sort of an image of a mother and a daughter. And I sort of saw them as a pair. And I saw that they were sort of separated, but I didn't know where they were in the world. So I had to sort of search for them. And with Trinidad, I left Trinidad a long time ago. I've lived here a long time. So I thought, okay, move on, let's try somewhere else. And, my husband is from New Zealand. And so I thought, oh, New Zealand, that's a nice place, mountains, Lord of the Rings. So I sort of thought, okay, I'll try there. And I spent quite a long time trying New Zealand because, I've visited a few times, I have people I can ask, but it was really a disaster. I wasted a lot of time. And then after New Zealand, I was like, okay, well, maybe Australia. So I tried Australia, fail. And then where did I go? I think I tried Hong Kong. I tried all sorts of places. And then, I'm from a hot place. I kind of have a fascination with snowy places. So I tried like Iceland. I was like, snow, igloos. So anyway, all that was a fail. And I think that, I think the thing is that like subconsciously, I was trying really hard not to go back to Trinidad, I guess because I'd worked quite hard to leave. But also, Trinidad is a very small place. It's like we have a population of 1 million people. People can't even find it on a map. It's very, so if you're sort of, if you are an ambitious writer and you sort of want to be a person of sort of global renown, you kind of think, well, how can I really write from such a small place as Trinidad? But in the end, and you can picture me sort of clutching my head at home and trying to write this novel. And, sort of in despair, I returned to Trinidad and I thought, okay, well, let me just try. Let me just see. Well, you can imagine, lo and behold, it all sort of started to work out very well. And these people, certainly the mother of this pair, began to come into focus. So what I could see, certainly from the mother, like I understood straight away how this mother had come to be pregnant with the daughter. Once I sort of put it in Trinidad, and I could see this, I saw her as a young woman. She was 16, and it happened when else but carnival time, right? This is a very common time for something like this to happen. So this young girl, she got pregnant at carnival time, and I was sort of envisioning it in the 80s, which is a time I knew well. And it was very shameful. I mean, Trinidad is quite conservative, and it certainly was then. And so her family sort of sent her away to Venezuela, which is nearby, 7 miles away, to have the baby in secret and give the baby up for adoption. So like that was very clear how she'd become pregnant and how they'd been separated. But like what I didn't know was how would this woman get to Venezuela? Because as I say, it's sort of 7 miles distance, and you could fly, I guess, but it's quite hard to keep it secret if you get board a plane and give your passport and fly. And so I called some friends at home and I said, how would she get to Venezuela and do it in secret? And she would go by boat. And when I say boat, we're talking a little wooden boat. It's a small boat. You're going out in the open ocean. And in order to keep it, she would have to go at night. And it's a very dangerous stretch of ocean, actually, because there's plenty drugs passing back and forth. And so, so that the coastlines are patrolled. So on the Trinidad, so we have the Coast Guard. On the Venezuelan side, you have the Guardia Nacional. Not only that, what else you have? You have pirates, Pirates of the Caribbean, exactly. So it really is a very dangerous journey. So in order for her to make that journey safely, she needs protection. So her family need to pay. They need to put their hand in their pocket and pay good money to protect that girl as she's crossing the water. So from those things, then I understood this woman came from a very wealthy family. She's probably white. She's a white woman. So with all those things, certainly the mother of the story began to come into focus. And then finally, I was on my way and I was able to write this book. And I mean, there were still lots of ups and downs. And in fact, the end was the last thing to arrive. But at least I had my woman. So that's the origin story. So I will now read a little bit for you. Okay, it's not very long. So the name of the character is Dawn. So Dawn is the mother in this pair. On the internet forums, I go by the username Dawn in London, or I use my married name, Dawn Wilson, but my real name is Bishop. If you've ever been to Trinidad, you'd know our name from Bishop's Fruit Juices. Is a well-known brand. It was the first company that my family owned, started up by my grandfather in the 1950s, and still going strong today. I'm Dawn Bishop. Kenneth Bishop is my father. His older brother, Lloyd, is my uncle. My uncle Lloyd lived down in the south of the island, as I've already said, but we lived near the capital, Port of Spain. I lived with my parents and two brothers in a house at the top of a hill, just off the North Coast Road. For nearly all the time that I was growing up, we had that whole hill to ourselves. In fact, it was my father who cut the road through the forest and built the house on the hill. He had these things done, he paid for them to be done. He bought the land from the government, and over a period of months, heavy machinery rumbled up the hill. Bulldozers and yellow caterpillar machines that tore down trees and dug out big clumps of red earth. Trucks came with ton loads of gravel. I still remember the roar of that gravel being poured out and how the surface of the big gray conical heap was like a mountain after rain. How tributaries formed along its sides as little stones slithered down. How whole sections of flanks broke and shifted. How dust floated above it and settled in the leaves of the trees. In the paths cut between the trees, men in black boots raked asphalt in black clumps. Then they stood back, leaning on their rakes, as the steamroller rumbled slowly past. They only cut down the smaller trees, the ones needed to clear space for the road. The mango trees, lime trees, Portugal's, breadfruit, pomsite. My parents told the men to leave the big salmon trees where they were, and most of the flamboyants, and the two teak trees down at the bottom of the hill by the golf course, and the silk cotton tree. We wouldn't have cut it down anyway, but with the country bookie superstition, the laborers wouldn't even go near it. In any case, the house was in a nice spot. The view from the patio out back was of the surrounding hills, green and lush in the rainy season, misty with low cloud. But it was the privacy my father liked rather than the view. In the evenings, he liked to sit out on the patio with my uncle, discussing company business, and to be able to talk without the risk of anybody overhearing. Some weekends, all my father's extended family would come up to Port of Spain from San Fernando. Then other chairs would be found and dragged out to the patio. White plastic chairs, iron folding chairs, velvet padded mahogany dining chairs, all kind of chairs to add to the bamboo set that was already there. The grown-ups would settle themselves into a loose circle and they'd be out on the patio talking and laughing late into the night. I would be amongst the little horde of children who roamed up and down the slope of the garden or in and out of the house. Those were the oil boom years, the 1970s and 1980s. Anyone familiar with the region will remember those glory days, will have heard them spoken of. Money flowed like water back in those days. They were the days of oil being $35 a barrel. And in Trinidad, offshore rigs started popping up along every coast, north, south, east, and west. They were the days of the new BB jumbo jets and weekly flights to Miami, New York, Toronto, and London. The days of the old waving gallery at Piarco Airport, where people came from all over the island on a Sunday afternoon, just for the thrill of seeing those big planes take off and land. It was the era of Peter Minshall, his river band, the legendary man crab and washerwoman. Carnival, never a small affair, became bigger, grander. The singer named Sparrow renamed himself to the Mighty Sparrow. Kitchener became Lord Kitchener. The West Indies cricket team ruled the world. In downtown Port of Spain, men walked like kings. Thank you.